This is a more personalized book. The other one focused a great deal on organizations and companies and corporations and how entities could work together in teamwork, goal setting and quality control. The second book takes that a step further, again using New Testament concepts and ideas, but how you can internalize it, like what is your honor system? What are your personal goals? What are the kind of things that bring out the dignity of what you want to accomplish in life? Who are you going to set as your role models and who are you going to take as your mentors?
And Jesus, a lot of times, is still back in his corporation where he's the head. However, he has his executive team now. They're taking over. And because he's doing a natural succession and he's phasing out, and they're going to be there, which is, of course, biblical, too. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. And even though I know what story you're going to pull from the Old Testament or the New Testament, I love the way that you've done it in the connections.
Yeah, that's the trick, the idea of saying, well, I'm not going to retell the identical story in the Bible, but I want a parallel so that what I can prove is that what he taught 2,000 years ago is still as pertinent today as it was back then, even if we change the venue, if we change the setting. So what I like to do is say, all right, what would be a parallel to that today? And that's what I have to sit down and think about. All right, this is what happened now. How are we using this now? And so I would do it by, let's give an example. I have one where Daniel in the lion's den. Well, I make it a young lady. Danny is her name. And I send her to look at a ghetto situation of rebuilding in Detroit, Michigan. And it's, a bad situation there where she's going to bid a job and she's going in. She's kind of afraid. She's scared. And Jesus tells her, he said, you can handle this. Keep your personal disciplines. Well, they come in and other people are going to bid on the jobs and they've been out drinking and partying, which was very much like the situation in the Old Testament when Daniel and his 3 companions came in. They were disciplined. Well, she's the same way. She's a vegetarian. She doesn't drink alcohol. And when the day comes for the presentation, she's stone cold sober. She's logical, but she has some extra talents too. Sociology, psychology. So when they show them gangland markings and they say, I don't understand what this means, she steps forward to interpret it. Well, it's the same way that Daniel did in the Old Testament. I can tell you what that means and I'll show you. And the people were saying, that's fun. That's just really fun. I see exactly what you're doing. I know that Old Testament story, but you're putting it in a modern day venue and you're teaching us the same lesson, and it's proving to me that it's totally applicable today. And that's my job as the writer.
Every chapter has half of something that is, in this case, in Jesus in All Seasons, is a lot of it is your connection with your dad. It's
autobiographical. It sure is.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think that when people listen to someone who's trying to teach a lesson, they say, but do you know what you're talking about? So if I say, well, this really happened to me when I was in the military, when I was serving in Vietnam, or this is a lesson that I learned while working for my father's company, and he took me aside and taught me something very valuable, then people will nod their heads and say, oh, you lived it. Oh, you really, that happened to you. And so that verification, and I don't set myself up as the hero or the know-it-all, it's the person who was the learner, and I thought, okay, I can gain that. Now let me pass it on to you. So the nonfiction parts have a great deal about how did I find my own moral compass? How did I find my own situation? You mentioned a lot of credibility things that I have, but those things were implanted in me. Are you doing the best you can? Are you reaching for new goals and new things? And people invested in me. They taught me these things, and my father was probably the greatest role model there. I still miss him to this day. He had a great sense of humor. He loved music, but he was a very good businessman, built 3 companies, and never even had a chance to go to college. But he used to say, anybody in America who isn't learning, it's your own fault. Because he said, you've got a library that's for free, you've got people who can mentor you and talk to you, and nowadays, of course, we've got the internet where you can study online, so his words of truth are even greater now than ever before.